interpretation of that, but implication of this is in the real news part, we might see more this local clusterings, thus making your information go through less layers to reach its endpoint. Versus in the fake one, we might have less opinion leaders and more grassroots, like one by one, this kind of information flow. This is what the network diameter is telling us. And also, this is the local clustering or the modularity. The real ones, the dark blue bars, also much higher, significantly higher than the fake counterparts. It has just equals our previous finding. We have more local clusterings in the real news or real news about Zika. That means maybe we have more opinion leaders creating these local clusterings. And we also compare the opinion leaders row here. So the green one is the real one, the red one is the fake one. The centrality measures are both significantly higher in the real ones versus in the fake ones. Meaning, even we have opinion leaders in real and fake one, fake news. The real one opinion leaders are practically more influential than the fake ones. So this is what this information are telling us. Okay. So we talked about the network structure that we can use to maybe help us telling apart the real one versus fake one. We talked about the opinion leaders, their relative contributions in these two groups. And there are a few other factors that we might use to identify the misinformation. First is the verification status of the original sender. In this 67 GMO Zika discussions, for the real information, 92%, more than 92% of the original sender, these are verified. These are verified users. Only 12% are verified in misinformation. And the two verified who they are, InfoWars and Alex Jones. And fortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, they are removed. Their IDs are banned. But at the time, when we collect the data, these two are verified. Friends-follower ratio, this is something really interesting. So this is for potential bot detection. So we see this weird, like star-like network in this 1.1 minute like dissemination, like attract more than 100 retweets. How could that be? So we further looked at the ratio between your friends and followers in this retweet stream. And this is a piece of finding. It's never recorded before. This is, in the fake news, this is where the star networks generated about. This red one is the original sender. All these little blue ones are these retweeters. And I just gathered, just simply plot how many number of friends each retweeter have versus how many followers they have. They almost align perfectly well on this 45-degree line. Why? What's going on here? It's not something like a more realistic information dissemination network where your opinion leaders have far more followers than your friends. Think about it. If you want to have opinion leaders to disseminate your information, it should be more influential. So it should have more followers than friends. You should have more followers than the one you follow with. But why? We see this 45-degree line here. What's going on? My interpretation or my hypothesis is these are all bots. They create an inner closed network themselves. Each one is connected with each other one in that small network. That's why each of them have similar friends count and followers. This is bots follow bots scenario. But that's just my speculation. I need to do some more rigorous study on that. By the way, I downloaded all their friends and follower information, another 30 gigabytes of data. on top of my already 4 gigabytes. This is the real information. I never seen this thing happening. This is where you have this, again, here we have this log. These are all in the log scale. This one is just before log. So you see here, your followers should be far more than your friends in order to qualify an opinion leader. This is what naturally happens in CDC and BBC. So you have the opinion leaders goes far more this 45-degree line. But in this fake one, the star network looks like this. So maybe we can use this as a criteria for bot detection as well. So we have this information, we have this network metrics, we have this opinion leaders characteristics, whether or not it's verified. We have this, the following structure. One thing never tackled at this point is the actual content, right? Actual content. How does that influence our decision whether or not it's real or fake? So we further this. This is with the help of my colleagues. We use the natural language processing with a preset dictionary to further look into the content of the tweets themselves. So with all these factors combined, I have a very, very coarse and very, very primitive model that this called TSNE, this T-distributed stochastic neighboring, the method for dimensional reduction. So all the red ones are the real information, all these black ones are misinformation. So after dimensional reduction, with all these factors combined, I kind of reach a point where I have a preliminary model that can tell the misinformation apart from the real ones, but it needs a lot of fine-tunings. But this is a potential direction that we have for potential auto detection of the fake ones. Because remember, I manually labeled 4,000. I don't literally want to label another single one. That's tedious. So I don't have enough time, but we want to talk just a little bit about interventions, how the health agency. So this is this one is the CDC's number of tweets about Zika in the 2016. The red curve is the actual Zika epidemic in the continental US. It's a huge mismatch between these two. Will that lead to the infiltration of the fake one at the later stage of the year? We don't know. That's what I'm currently trying to explore. So that's all my talk is about. It's a pretty interdisciplinary. Hope you go with me. This work is funded by the Arthur Page Center at Penn State University, and I have also partially funded by our data science initiative at UNC Charlotte. I have a lot of collaborators across UNC Charlotte, different colleges, and Elon University. So thank you very much for being part of this, my talk, and I'll be happy to take any of your questions. It's a little bit different.
So on Twitter, if I'm on Twitter
Yes.
and I'm scrolling through and I see an article I'm interested in, I might open it up and I'll read it later, long after I've passed that original tweet.
Thank you.
Right? So does your system have any way of detecting, like if I were to tweet that article out, I'm not directly retweeting, I'm tweeting out the same bit of information. Does your system have any way of detecting where somebody has maybe been influenced by another source, but hasn't directly retweeted?
At this stage of analysis, we don't have this capability, but you definitely give us a kind of directions or something to consider. Yeah, we have should be all implemented in the algorithms that can actually detect how much influence some other tweets can give. So for instance, we can basically have the ability to gather all the retweets that single ID is given in a given specific period of time. So maybe by using that, we can use that as a kind of a promise or something like a representation of whether or not this ID is influenced by some other informations on Twitter's feed.
So, bridging off of what you brought up, Facebook has views that they count. Each of the videos, it says been viewed. People look at a picture of my daughter like 200 times, but only 3 people like it. It's fine. I don't take it personally. But you know, but I had it records that a view happened. Does Twitter do that as well, so you can go beyond the retweets? Or
Twitter has actually, I think, 3. One is the number of retweets. The second is the number of favorites. I think the third is the number of comments or replies. But unfortunately, it doesn't have the how many you viewed.
I think only for the tweeter, like they can see metrics.
okay.
What do you think about the possibility that some of the people that create these bots will use research like yours to kind of create more realistic bots, like a more realistic friend-follower ratio, or take less than a minute to...
It's a non-race. Actually, what I want to emphasize is bot itself is a neutral kind of technology. We are using bots a lot for good things, but it's just these folks are using bots for some other, their own goods. So yes, of course, once this is like an arm race, once we kind of identify, maybe they can too. And actually, this is what I heard. Nowadays, the bots, you see this star network, they retweet within 1 minute, right? This is very, very unrealistic. Now the bots have evolved to avoid this kind of suspicious behavior. They can retweet at a kind of a stochastically distributed time. It's not hard to implement. You just write an algorithm to let them retweet at a preset Poisson distributed time, and that's it. It's harder for this researchers or anyone else to detect whether or not it's bot. So they are evolving as well under the pressure.
Is there a convenient and, I guess, ethically acceptable way to test your model by creating some bots of your own?
Yes. It's not unethical. It's basically what we did initially was to create, not really bots, but to use some real people, but we created some accounts and use that to test the algorithm. Yeah, you can think that they are bots because they are created by us. We are the Muppet players. Right? Basically, in order to test whether or not our algorithm actually works, we need to create these accounts and send up a few random garbage and see how our algorithm can construct this information dissemination network. Yes, that's feasible.
Do you see a world where bots can be incentivized, or we can incentivize bots to send out real information?
Sure. As I said, these are double-edged sword. Those ones who send the fake ones, we can utilize. Actually, believe it or not, I think CDC uses this technology as well. So the CDC has 67 associated Twitter accounts. Their informatics division is actually very powerful and very interesting. And I just suspect, that's my own suspicion. So they use this kind of automatic algorithm to use this sidebox or bots, whatever you prefer to call it, to send out information. Actually, our study, some successive study will show that at what time of information relay, at what time you can precisely give a second impulse of your discussion. It's not always at once you send out your tweets. It's not always within the 10 minutes you retweet that creates the biggest buzz. It can sometimes when your hype fade, like after a few hours, you give a second dosage, that will pump things back again. So we can kind of maybe develop algorithm to automatically set up, okay, after this period of time, give a retweet and create a hype again. So that's possible.
Did you ever think about working with somebody to look at the discourse of the actual tweets, the misinformation tweets and so forth, to see what ideas and narratives are they building upon to put forth that? So like the one that you showed, that list of 10, is like, it was concerned about chemicals, right? Was a key to a lot of those points. And it'd be really interesting just to see
Yes,
what are
that's
the
topic
keywords in-
modeling. Yes, that's the next step is actually looking into the content of these tweets and create a content-based network instead of a ID-based network, a content-based network. See which topics are closely related together and are they polarized, especially in this country. They're highly polarized.
Off that, I mean, your model preliminary model that detects.
This one, the TSN?
Yeah, can you talk at all about kind of what's actually going on in
Yes,
terms of the natural
sure.
language processing?
So this relates to, okay, we have this, the content analysis, this content analysis part. It can analyze the different emotions, the different topics, all the different aspects of one tweet. So given one tweet, just one tweet within 140 characters, it can give like 70 different metrics, measuring all aspects, linguistic features, content features. And we extract about, I think, 30 Zika or health-related ones. So we put them into one factor, and we also put in this ID-related factors, like how many friends, how many followers, the network metrics as well. So all of them, put them together. As I said, this is still very preliminary, as you can see. Just arbitrarily put everything together and dump them into this TSNE algorithm and see what's the result is spilled out. Fortunately, the initial result is good, but we still need a lot of fine-tunings, like which factor should have given a higher weight so that the model can perform better. Which factor needs to be combined with others. Like currently we still have like 50 whatever factors. Can we just further downsize that a little bit and improve the accuracy, so whenever we encounter a tweet about Zika, we can automatically tell whether or not it's real or misinformation without digging all the details.
Have you ran it without the attributes of the tweeter, like the friends and followers, and just done the content? Because I think.
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
So you said that everything's in this, so the characteristics of the content and characteristics of the
idea itself,
entity.
and then the characteristics of the information dissemination network.
Is it valuable in an algorithm like this to separate the two and see what they're like independently and then see what they're like together?
Yes, we can definitely do that on each set of the input and see whether or not they work better independently or synergistically. Yeah.
Do they separate this clearly
This one
just from the content, not from the attributes?
I haven't tried that, but I can just do it. It's just a piece of code. Yes.
So listening to your talk, I was thinking about what's going on inside Twitter in terms of their company. I mean, part of me
They're
thinks
evolving.
part of me thinks that they have a whole team of people like you who don't have to teach and don't have to write grants, who are doing this kind of work but are not going to publicize it. And then part of me thinks maybe they don't care.
They publicize their how their metadata is about, and that's because they have this metadata publicized. That's how we can know, okay, what is different values mean in this huge 3-4 gigabyte this data set. And then, based on that, we can further create this information dissemination network. Unfortunately now, there used to be like the scenario, you don't have to apply for a developer account with Twitter to pull out all this data, but now you have to. Yeah, Twitter itself, it is probably also very, very profitable company. Yes.
Are there other than Zika, are there other examples of this fake information within the context of infectious disease?
Oh, a lot of them. Vaccine, big one. Antimicrobial resistance, big one. Flu, big one. All the way back, that was not Twitter, but social media. The SARS epidemic, big one. Just almost every aspect you can think about health, because health, I mean the Department of Public Health now. The unfortunate truth is people do care about their health, but they don't have adequate information and knowledge to differentiate or tell the real one from the fake one. Even like us, we're highly educated. When dealing with very specific health questions, we cannot always differentiate the real one from the fake one at first glance. Sometimes some of them are really buried in and blend in the content really well. And you really need to dig into the details to tell them apart.
So there are studies of this metadata in the Twitterverse for those other cases that you just named? And
yes.
Is that accessible anywhere?
Yes, there are quite a few studies on the Twitter and other health-related ones like Twitter and vaccine, Twitter and another good aspect, intervention part. Twitter versus healthy lifestyle, Twitter versus not over-tanning yourself, Twitter of exercise, Twitter of going out catching Pokemons and doing some exercise. All these kind of good things on Twitter happening as well. So that's the silver lining. We are not always talking about the fake one, misinformation. Twitter can do the good things too. If we implement or administrate this online social media campaigns, that's a good use. I consider it a good use of Twitter.
So several of these questions have sort of built up to mine. You early on, I think it was one of your first slides, distinguished between categories of misleading information.
Yes, these are still debatable. These are not determined.
And I want to begin there because it's good that you show that, because when I think about monopolies or very large public utilities, and functionally Twitter and other social media have reached that status now. That is, they have similarities to, say, railroads in the 19th century or public electrical utilities in the 20th century. Eventually, society decides that there's a limit on the power of the market, or has decided in those previous cases.
Oh yeah.
And so, for example, you mentioned that the First Amendment has so far regulated, society has so far basically allowed these companies to remain essentially unregulated. That we appreciate the benefits that come from the free exchange of information, and we prioritize that over the possible harms. But the reason I mentioned this slide is it seems to me that at some point, especially beginning with your epidemiological perspective, that we have to imagine that some of this information is actually intended to harm. There's malicious intent, which could actually kill people. Right? There is information being circulated which has the possibility, even the intent of harming people, and we've seen this particularly so far in the political realm. Right?
Yes.
So I guess where I'm going with all this is, could your information be used, or I guess I'm speculating here, but it seems to me that you're identifying a pathway by which we might begin to regulate these public utilities. That is, if intent is intent the crucial difference between the line between First Amendment rights and the limits that the Supreme Court has placed on the First Amendment. It's illegal for me to say things that are intended to harm you. There are actually rules against that, right? Is this the line when it comes to, say, Zika?
Yeah, it's a very good point, but unfortunately here, this is the objective part, verifiable incorrect content. We can easily say, okay, this piece of information is incorrect, but what is the intention? This is the very ambiguous part.
So who's behind those bots is the question.
Yeah. As I said, the website I show you, the Natural News, I can tell you my understanding of his intent, his financial incentives, his selling all this so-called healthy food, organic food, this kind of things. Yeah, that's the financial incentive.
What if your next partner ought to be a lawyer?
It always comes down to that.
Interesting. Or an ethicist.
Yeah, there are, and as I said, these are not like reach the consensus in academia. Even in academia, we're still debating whether or not these things are like some other new categories. Whether or not we use misinformation, whether or not we use fake news or disinformation, all kinds of debate is right now. And as I said, these things, and they are not, some of them are not mutually exclusive. For instance, extreme bias and hate, they can build into the conspiracy theory or misleading or the fake. Yeah. And sometimes if uncareful, this joke and sarcasm can lead to misleading as well.
There's also precedent for intent not mattering, right? For to the Civil Rights Act. So that could also come into that conversation. So even if intention is hard to demonstrate or motivation is hard to demonstrate, outcome is easier to measure. So there is legal precedent to bypass intent, and that's something that I think is important to consider in that conversation.
Yeah, I call all these words are carefully and intentionally fabricated to create the unnecessary fear and anger.
Building up on Matthew's question, it seems like Twitter would have a self-interest in starting to police themselves to reduce the misinformation so that they don't get regulated.
Yeah,
right.
that's true.
So what sort of tools exist in that universe to prevent misinformation or to stop it from spreading quickly, or to I mean, you mentioned that the Alex Jones account got shut down.
Yeah.
That's a really high-profile
It's
example.
high profile,
but it's almost meaningless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great thing, but you know, I mean, they're not doing some sort of regular analysis of Twitter users and eliminating accounts that are spreading misinformation, are they?
They are.
They must be.
Okay.
They are. They do regular bot purges. They're in the middle of a bot purge right now, actually. And any tweet that somebody, any tweet can be reported, and there's categories of ways that you can report tweets, and it can be abusive or harmful information. It can be targeting groups. So there's a variety of categories of things that you can report tweets for. And you can also report accounts for impersonating real people.
Yeah,
So,
but unfortunately, you think about this. Nowadays, those accounts are so cheap, almost at no cost. You create this. Adam, this guy, he created tens of thousands of websites. Not to mention how many bots he should have under his control in his Twitter sphere. There is no. You have to manually report one and each of his bots. It's like just cutting one cell from Hydra. It's almost this is unfortunate truth.
Right, but with bots, I don't think Twitter's interest is in misinformation. I think their interest is in getting real people count, because advertisers don't want to be advertising to bots, they want to be advertising to real people. And with respect to how, I mean, maybe some of this is trying to get ahead of regulation, but you know, a lot of their handling of tweets is about harassment more than it is about misinformation.
right, yes.
So they want people to keep coming back and feel like they can keep coming back. And if that means they get rid of one Alex Jones every once in a while, so be it. But you know, they're very resistant to that too. They don't really care about misinformation. And my third point is, with respect to misinformation, I think they would just point to the user and say, it's the user's responsibility, not ours to police them. So if you're going to sue anybody, it's not us, it's the user you should be suing.
They do have a spam category there for reporting, so you can report something as spam. Although the point is, you'd have to do each one individually. They do periodically go through and, with the bots specifically, do bot purges.
So back with your category slide that you were just at. So one category that I'm curious about is, so this boundary between what we know is fact and what is contested, like different interpretations of uncertainty, where the scientific field isn't quite settled, and how we give different meaning to that uncertain place.
Yeah,
I'm curious where the uncertain place falls, where it's not actually misinformation, but it's not fact, and it's actually this really interesting part of like contesting what we know and what we don't know.
Yes, that's especially true for the Zika, as we know, especially in 2016, the evolution of our understanding of Zika was kind of evolving. First, we saw that Zika is a strictly vector-borne disease. Then all of a sudden, we realized, okay, it can be transmitted sexually and vertically as well. So all of a sudden, our understanding is evolving. But what I'm thinking is, it really shouldn't be too kind of definitive or something like that, and you are pushing some agenda on the behalf of that. For instance, I saw some of the informations about this, in general Zika, they were trying to sell this pesticide. They claim they're the best for the Aedes the mosquitoes. I consider that's part of misinformation, because it's just purely for financial, the reasons. And actually, I think 6 or 7 their account get banned by Twitter. Yeah.
two kind of silly questions.
No question.
Well, you'll see. So I'm actually a really strong proponent for having a punctuation mark for jokes and sarcasm, because text can be so confusing out of context. If we had that, would you then consider a tweet that was a joke and use the proper punctuation to be misinformation?
I agree with you. They might not like fit in the umbrella term of misinformation. They maybe stand out as independent. Yeah, there are a lot of unclear boundaries whether what is the real information, what is misinformation, where do we put the joke and the sarcasm, this kind of things. The reason I just tentatively put it here is sometimes people do not differentiate. They do not read carefully and just think, okay, just read whatever it writes. Yeah, like the Zika is transmitting from the screen to your brain. Okay, that's it. I got infected because I look at the screen with the keyword. Or something like, look at also hilarious the animation, the GIF, where someone is dancing weirdly, and they say, hey, look, this is what the Zika is doing to our people and Obama. That's that's definitely a joke, but well, it involves some political figures, and then all of a sudden it may change the tone of the tweet.
And then my second question was, how long did it take you to code 4,000 tweets?
Oh, good question. 3,000 tweets.
We have the room at 1 o'clock.
Okay, it takes me about a month to code 3,000.
Done?
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us know.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we
didn't see you out there. Sorry about that. Thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Let's give Dr.